Welcome back, everyone. You know what it is. It's time to talk more Last of Us. I told you we're going to have a lot more videos on this channel talking about The Last of Us, but this is more of a follow-up to a previous video I did before The Last of Us Part 2 did come out, and that was my friend beat The Last of Us for the very first time, and it was awesome getting his reaction to that, but since he loved the first one, he wanted to jump right into the second one. And the best thing about this is I don't know any thoughts really about what he thinks about this game. I don't know if he liked it. I don't know if he hates it. I don't know if he's on the side that people are freaking out about it. But what I am excited about is to talk about this game with him in, of course, spoiler fashion. So if you guys are new here and, of course, you don't want to be spoiled with The Last of Us Part 2, do come back later on. Put this in your watch later. But of course, if you guys are new here, though, hit that like and subscribe button for not just me, but also for my excellent guest over there. We do a podcast also called Geeks of the Round Table, and I don't want you guys to miss out on that because we do a weekly basis, and it's a fun time right over there. But without further ado, let's get our guest in here, Mr. Ren Geekness. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, brother. Thank you for having me on. I can't wait to finally discuss with you. Like, we've seen each other's posts on Twitter, but we haven't exactly talked about it after both of us beat the game. So I can't wait just to let it all out.
I agree. And I think this is kind of the exciting part about it is because, like, again, you love the first game, correct? For a follow-up for people who didn't get to see the first video, you love the first game. You never played it until what, 2 weeks ago?
No, this, like, last week I started, I think, around Friday or Saturday. Yeah, Saturday, and then I finished on Monday, and then this past Friday it was Last of Us 2.
And was it like so like before we get into like your actual thoughts on it, so you love the first game, it lived up to the hype of 7 years of never playing it.
Yeah, and not knowing what would happen. I had no idea.
So I have a question. Is the first game, would you say the first game's like one of the best games you ever played?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just in terms of story alone, it's got to be up there.
Okay. So, moment of truth. I'm going to ask you the same thing like how I got the question out of you. All right. Score for number 2. Story-wise, I know you're more just a story gamer, gameplay, all that stuff, but story, because gameplay we'll talk about. But I know like you were mostly play these games for story, which is the same as me. So, what's your score out of 10?
For just judging the story alone and not like scoring the game as a whole, I'll give it a 10 out of 10 again.
Fuck yeah, yes. Okay. I'm sure a lot of people are freaking out about that. Like, why?
How
dare
you?
Think it's that? Yeah. And so like now I can talk to you about the leaks that I knew. So let's talk about that. I mentioned it.
Let's go.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I was spoiled on this game the second the leaks came out. Some asshole tagged me and stuff and said, "Hey, did you see this?" And I'm like, "Fuck you! I didn't want to see that." So the three things I knew going into this game was I knew Joel died. I knew Joel was gonna die.
Did you know it was at the beginning, or did you just?
So I didn't know it was that early. I didn't know it was that early in the game. I thought it was like I knew it was going to be early, but not like first hour.
You didn't know it was the thing that set the story going.
I had a feeling it was, but like not. And you know what? Even before the leaks came out, I already had a feeling Joel was going to die in this game. I already had a feeling Joel was going to die in the game, the way that they were marketing it, the way that everything was going on about Ellie. And I said, Joel's either going to die or this new love interest, Dina, is going to die. From the very first trailer. I'm like, because the very first trailer I actually watched was, of course, her playing the guitar and Joel walking in. And I'm like, I don't think Joel's alive in that. I think that's more of her memory. But one of the first sequences they ever showed was actually the one when Joel pushes the guy away at the party. Nice, that was one of the first sequences they ever showed. The only two other trailers I ever saw was that one, and they showed one of Abby in the forest. I actually did a trailer reaction to that one
when she was
with
younger?
Yara.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, interesting things in that part. But so, I knew Joel was gonna die, and I also knew that you play as Abby. And I knew Abby was the one that killed Joel. But the way that I was told about it was that you play as Abby for a majority of the game. Which was not the truth. You play a lot of her, definitely, but you don't play as... I also knew why she killed Joel.
Okay.
I saw the surgeon, and I put 2 and 2 together and said, that's her dad. The other thing I was told, but was not true, I was told Ellie dies.
Yeah.
Someone took a picture of her laying on the ground after Abby beats the shit out of her and said, Ellie dies. And I said, Does she though? So when it actually got to that moment and she didn't die,
Yeah.
I didn't know anything else after that.
All
Which
right.
made me kind of happy that I didn't know the ending. So, Ren, kind of just give your basic overall thoughts of the game. Just a basic, what were your thoughts overall? Gameplay, story. You already gave your score, but just kind of like a basic reaction to it.
Yeah, so I thought this story was just beautiful. It was terrifying at the same time. It was haunting. It left you with a punch to the gut constantly. The game kind of depresses you as you go along because you see Ellie showing the worst side of her. And this, you saw my tweet. This game is about pain. Period. This game is about how pain changes you. It turns you into the worst possible version of yourself, and I love that about this game. The thing that I love about Joel's death, as far as the story is concerned, it's that it sucks. We're not supposed to like it. The fact that we're in the story kind of sucks, but that's why it works. Like things don't work in the story because I like them. I like things in the story because they work. One is the consequence of the other. And I loved what this game, like, I think we play as Abby a little too much. There are a few gameplay parts on her end that I didn't think was necessary.
So can I throw something towards you?
Yeah, sure.
So I agree with you on the Abby thing. I still think this game's perfect. And I'm going through my second playthrough right now. I want to get the platinum trophy. I want to do all that. But I told myself, I'm like taking my time very much with the second part. Because I do wish, you know, if I wasn't in this space, I probably would have taken my time a lot more with this game. Because it's a game that really throws a lot of gut punches at you and really hits you hard. And I think, honestly, the last time I was affected this much by a story was Arrival. The ending of Arrival affected me so much, and I feel like The Last of Us Part 2 is the closest thing that's ever gotten to that gut punch of a feeling. So I want to pose this to you. Now, I'm not saying that this would have worked, but I'm wondering to you, and I don't think the sales would have been as good for a game, so I understand why they didn't do this. I wonder if this game, like if they would have marketed this game that you play as a different character, and that you start as Abby, and you're playing from her perspective the whole game, like the beginning, like the first beginning of the game is all those flashbacks, and then like 3 hours in you notice, no, her dad's the surgeon.
Yeah.
And then things start tinkering. But then at the same time, I don't like that because I think the game starts off so fast paced and it continuously does that. And I think when it finally takes that break with Abby, it is very jarring because especially where you were at. But I actually thought Abby's storyline, as it started to go on, got really good. And I mean, really, really good, to the point where, because I was already putting myself in her shoes, knowing why she did what she did. And obviously it's a little bit different from your perspective, but I was already putting my perspective. I was like, if we played as Abby and her dad in the first game and Joel ended up killing her dad, you would want to kill Joel.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I agree, and I like how they structured the game, because you need to see the game first through the perspective of a character you already know and love, and that is Ellie. But then you see that Abby, I still want to kill her, I still hate her, but she's just a person who has been through bad experiences, and her experience, you put yourself in her place. She has a home and friends, just like Ellie, and someone was taken away, and suddenly she becomes this Joel figure to Lev throughout the game.
Yes, the parallels between Abby and Ellie, and Lev and Joel are like absolutely some of the best parts about this game.
That's the thing that I like in this game, is that you start seeing Abby as like an Ellie to her dad's Joel, but that's not what the game is trying to say. She is the Joel to Lev,
which I think is one of the coolest characters in the game. I thought Lev was fucking awesome, and
I love at this point in time, as we're recording it, I still want Abby to die. I still want to fucking punch her because she killed Joel. Like, Joel was my friend. I love Joel. But at the same time,
you get why she did it.
Yes, but those flashbacks show you the lesson in this game is that you have to let anger go, because if Ellie kills Abby, then Lev is going to come back for Ellie, and then someone is going to come back for Lev.
And that's the whole thing I've been mentioning in every video I've done about this. It's this whole game is about a cycle of violence. It's always about a cycle of violence. Joel killed Abby's father, so Abby wants revenge.
Yeah.
Abby killed Joel, Ellie wants revenge. If Ellie, and you're all right, if Ellie would have killed Abby, yes, Ellie could have slit Lev's throat, all that sorts of stuff. Yeah. But you never know. Who else has Abby run into?
But she wouldn't. Like, she wouldn't kill that child,
she wouldn't have killed Lev for no reason. She was there for Abby, and it would have just been that continuous cycle. And a lot of people are pissed about the ending of this game that Ellie did not kill Abby, but I just don't think they understand the purpose of this game. You look at one thing, anger, pain. When you use that as a motivation for vengeance, what?
For anything, really.
Yeah. Ellie and Abby are both on the brink of death by the end of this game. They were both on the brink of death multiple times. And they always say, if you're going on a road of vengeance, make sure to dig 2 holes because you're probably going to end up dying too. Yeah. And I fully believe, I think if Ellie would have ended up killing Abby, she still would have had the PTSD. You see Abby still kind of has it too.
1,000,000%. Yeah.
You still see Abby's affected by that. But the other thing is, this vengeance, you don't understand. When it consumes you, you lose everything. Yeah. Abby lost the guy she loved. Yeah. Her dad, obviously.
Her friends.
All of her friends.
The pregnant one, even.
The pregnant one. And her whole life was in shambles because of what she did. Yeah. Ellie had everything by the end of this game.
Yeah. By the beginning of the 3rd act, at least.
Yes. And she gave it up for vengeance, which she didn't even get because she noticed this isn't what Joel would want.
No, and she learned to forgive, and I love that. That's what the flashbacks in that moment of flashes to Joel's beaten up face right before he died are telling us. She's looking at Abby and she's seeing Joel because she just talked to Lev. And I love how the game presents vengeance and this pain as an infection itself. Like the infected are here and there.
If she would have killed Joel, if she would have killed Abby, it would have just been another basic revenge story.
Yes,
and that's 100%. And you know what? That's what I acclaim Naughty Dog for this for, because Neil Druckmann has talked about it. He took a character and added more layers, because the first Last of Us is a coming of age story for Ellie, pretty much. This one is building upon that, and I think you mentioned it. You mentioned the flashbacks. The flashbacks are absolutely the best part about this game,
especially Ellie's flashbacks.
Especially Ellie's. And you know what? I'll say this: Abby's are very, very slow. Especially, and can we just say, I want to say one thing. I've not mentioned this. I do think the sex scene was a little weird.
I thought it was odd. I thought it was odd. Too. Like, as soon as it was over, I completely forgot it. It didn't bother me anymore. But as it was happening, I was like, oh, okay.
I will say, and I think people are completely shitting on Abby's character and making fun of her. And yes, there are a lot of memes of how big she is. I mean, she's gigantic, but you don't see that in games. I mean, I'm being honest. You don't see that in games. He's a lot of like Tomb Raider. Lara Croft should be fucking ripped at this point. She's not.
I saw an interview with Neil Druckmann and someone else, and they were talking about how the design for the characters, like main characters, supporting characters, whatever, they wanted to represent the kind of people that play these games. And even if that wasn't the case, Abby is a soldier. If she was like the regular looking person, it wouldn't bother me. But at the same time, as I look at the context of the characters, like, she's a fucking soldier. Of course she's going to look like a Ronda.
And the other thing, you also got to see this, is like, she went through a traumatic experience, knows how Joel killed everyone. Yeah. You don't just go as skinny little Ellie. You know what I mean? Like, Abby knew, like, and if you notice, she fights a lot like Joel. She plays a lot like Joel, which, again, I really love that parallel going back. And you even see the PTSD things. Ellie has the thing of the hallway going down, and Abby has the thing of the hospital. It's very, very clever. And even when they go to that flashback of Ellie going to the hospital and finding the video recording, perfect symbolic stuff. So this is what I want to talk about, the flashbacks with you, because I think that is some of the most important storytelling devices of this. Because for a majority of this game, my favorite things about the first Last of Us was it is a dark and grisly game, but the best parts about it was the subtle moments between each other. Yeah. This game, the best moments about it, I would go as far to argue, are this flashbacks. Or just the subtle details. Like, I think the only subtle thing throughout the whole thing is, I don't know if you found it, was the collectible when Ellie starts playing Take On Me. Did you see that? Did you get that one?
Not sure.
So she finds it. She plays it. Her and Dina it's in Seattle. They go to you can find a music store, and if you go into the music store, she picks up a guitar and plays "Take on Me" acoustically to Dina.
Oh yeah. I have.
And I loved that moment. Especially that moment with Joel singing to Ellie. I'm like, oh my god, this is Pearl Jam, but I don't care. He's making it seem. that is where this game strides so well, because for a majority of this game, you don't understand what happened between Joel and Ellie, but you
No,
assume that they were not on good terms,
yeah,
and then she is filled by guilt because she didn't get that. But reality is that last flashback we see, that
the
was not
best
the
one.
point.
Yeah,
The best one. We find
that's
out
what
that
I
she's
love.
fueled by guilt because they just started to rekindle
Yeah,
their friendship.
and
And that makes so much more meaning, especially in the first level of the game when she's with Dina talking about, oh, I think I'm going to invite Joel over for a movie. Because for us, we're like, oh, you know, they're still friends. But as the story goes on, you're like, no, there was way more behind the details with them.
Yeah, I love it because that last flashback, as she goes over
I
to
cried.
dude, I'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But as she goes over to Joel's porch, to me that recontextualizes the whole game. There is and that's one of the things that helps you understand why she didn't kill Abby. She wasn't really mad at Abby. I mean, of course she was mad at Abby, but that wasn't the main thing. She was mad because Abby took away her chance to forgive Joel. She had just begun that process of, I would like to try and forgive you.
When she said that, goosebumps, man.
Dude, you know Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar? Yeah. I was like that. Like last month, or at this point 2 months ago, but Last Guardian, I played it for the first time. I teared up in that game. It was the first it was the first game to make me cry, but those were tears, like small tears coming out, I cleaned my eyes, that's it. Last of Us, and I think this is because I played like the whole experience 1 and 2 together. I was bawling my eyes out. I couldn't have any more water left in my body.
Dude, and that's the thing. I mean, again, this game has truly affected me. Yeah. Like, to the point where, like, I usually when I beat a game, I don't go back through it right away. I'm going back through this game right away. But the thing about this is, I can't imagine myself not continuing playing this game for years to come. Like, when I'm done with my second playthrough, I'm probably going to start it again. Probably a little bit slower the third time again. But I want to continue playing this game because it sucked me in so much. And, you know, you talk about crying. For me, it takes a lot for a game, a movie. Like, I always get tiny tears, but never, like, enough. And for me, Last of Us 2, there were multiple moments where goosebumps, tears. Joel's death. I knew it was coming. I still fucking cried. And every time and this time playing it and the first time I still cried. But that last flashback I think is the most important because the one right before that is their argument. And then and then you're like, oh my God, I understand why she wants to kill Abby. And even then, me and Cody were talking about this in the last spoiler discussion we did. And we discussed the last moment when you finally do find Abby and she's tied up to the pole. How do you kill her at that point? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, Ellie even said, like in her mind, she's like, I mean, she got what she deserved, right?
And I also like that because throughout the game you have the wolves, you have the scars, and eventually you have the rattlers. And again, it's that same cycle of violence. It's just people going out of control. Though I will say, I would have loved for instead of the rattlers, or it could have been the rattlers, but I would like to have seen that was the same group of wolf descendants that after Isaac's death, they were so directionless that they went off and became their own thing, something that they were never before.
That would have been cool. And I know a lot of people thought they were going to be the wolves. I kind of didn't mind the rattlers, though, even though it was a little bit jarring to have like a completely different group come in.
Yeah, I didn't mind that they were a different group. I just like one of the characters to be there, and we saw that, oh, that's one of the former wolves, and they just became this very twisted version of what they were used to be.
Yeah, but I also get because it's like so far apart, you know?
Yeah.
But I thought that was great because I liked how the epilogue started was you get Ellie kind of showing her new life and having PTSD, sure.
Yeah, the PTSD.
And then you switch to Abby, and for a second I'm like, please don't play as Abby for the rest of this game. You know what I mean? Like, we already played as her for such a majority of the. And you know what? I did time that middle segment. It feels slower, but to be honest, it's only like 5-6 hours, if anything. Like Ellie's story is like majority. It's still like I think I had 27 hours logged in, and I think only 6 to 7 hours of that was Abby. And the rest was all Ellie. So, but when it went to her, I liked how Abby got that hopefulness of the Fireflies, and then she leaves and that doesn't happen. But I also love, I love the loading screen now. It shows that Abby and Love made it to Catalina Island, which again, it's cool. Which I have a feeling Naughty Dog did this DLC for Uncharted 4, which took place afterwards, which is it was pretty much a standalone game for $40. I have a feeling they're going to do one for Abby and Lev. But that's different now because now the fan base is complete. I hope Naughty Dog sticks to whatever their story, because Neil Druckmann's already talked about a part 3. He already has an idea for part 3. He just doesn't know if he wants to do that next. I'm going to say you do it next. And I think even Sony's going to tell him you do it next. Because did you see how well this game is selling?
Yeah.
I'm actually amazed by that. I'm legit amazed by how well this game is selling. And that's not even digital copies. That's only physical media at this point. So
physical for the win.
Hell yeah. So it's very, very, very exciting to see like this game doing so well. And you know what? Like I understand that there are people out there who just don't like this game. That's fine. I mean, if you don't want to look under the surface and you want to just shit on the storytelling, that's fine. You know, like that's your ultimatum to do. Before we start wrapping this up, Ren, let's talk about some of the gameplay changes. Did you like kind of the shakeup with some of the new enemies and all that?
I enjoyed.
I thought a lot of it was kind of the same, though. I didn't think it changed too much.
There wasn't like too much advancement. I really like, and this wasn't even something that I missed in the first game, but I really love that they added like the dodging part.
I do
the
too.
Second game. That's the best part. As far as gameplay is concerned, I touched a little bit early upon this. I think the Abby part of the game is a little too long. There are certain sequences that you could cut out. There's a lot of essential parts in it. Everything she has with Yara and Lev, keep that. Everything that comes after,
I will say that's the best part of the big game. When Abby's storyline picks up is when she's in the forest. That sequence is like top 5 sequences in The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, I also like the sequence where you have to go all the way into the aquarium to find Owen and Mel dead. Like you're playing throughout that sequence and you're like, I know what I'm going to find. I know what Ellie just did. So I think you could have cut that off just to a cutscene of she entering the aquarium. She sees them dead. Boom, go to the theater, and then you enter the theater. That's it. But I also think like the going up to the hospital and getting down from the hospital is also way too long. But that's really off the top of my head my only complaints. I think they're too short, so it's not a big issue. But the boat sequences, especially with Ellie, since it's kind of a longer sequence when she goes on the boat, trying to get to the aquarium for the first time, I think it's a little hard to handle. The boat.
Oh, really? I disagreed. I kind of liked how the boat control was. But I will also give a shout out. I haven't even talked about this. The accessibility in this game is absolutely outstanding. I don't know if you tinkered around with it. This is one of the most accessible games for anyone. Like, you can change so many different things and maneuver stuff to make this game accessible for you so you can play the story. And I was thinking about this, since they are doing Last of Us as a miniseries on HBO. You know, I think the first game could be 1 season. I'm going to be honest. I think the second game needs to be 2 seasons. It could be 2 seasons. I think the game is so big and vast that you do need 2 seasons.
It depends, because like, let's say the first season is 10 episodes. I agree with you. I don't think the second game needs 20 episodes, but I also don't think 10 episodes are enough. Like, I think it needs like 15 or maybe
12.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I was even thinking? They could do, you start as Ellie, start as Abby. Like, each episode goes back and forth. Because I think that actually would have broken the game up a little bit better, is if they would have done Seattle Day 1, plays Ellie, then you go to Abby.
I think that would have become tiring, to be honest.
Really?
I thought structurally they did it very well. It's just that sequence, that part of Abby, it's just a little too long. There are just things in there that you can cut and trim it down, and it will become much more compact and much more solid to play through.
Yeah, but the thing is, I just acclaim Neil Druckmann for doing that risk. I mean, 100%. That's something I would have never expected, is you play as the person who killed the main character from the first game, which Cody put a cool perspective to me. If you notice, the first character he plays in the first Last of Us is the first character that dies. First character you play in this Last of Us is the first character that dies. Now, so talking about the future of this, you know, he's talked about a Last of Us 3. He has plans for it. He doesn't know what he wants to do next, new IP or this. Again, I think he finishes off the trilogy. I think he does one more Last of Us before continuing. I think it makes sense. You know, you don't just not do another one. So where would you want the story to go? Because of course the story ends with Ellie coming back, playing the guitar, seeing Dina left and all that, and her walking off in the distance. Very poetic, very beautiful. Where would you want the story to go?
So let me start by saying this. If third Last of Us come out, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna buy it day one. I'm gonna be there. don't do it. This story just closed out beautifully. Again, if it comes out, I'm going to buy it. I'm not going to be against this whatsoever. But looking at the ending of this game, thinking back on the first game, it's the journey of these two characters. Their journey is done. I think it's a beautiful ending. I barely could see it because I was watering up so much.
Yeah,
but
me too.
But it's over, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing. It's beautiful that it's done. It's beautiful that we went on this journey. It was painful, but it was so worth it. I want to do it again. I'm not like you that I'm going to play it right now because
you're gonna give it some time.
Yeah, because I played both so closely that I can't now play the second one without replaying the first one.
Yeah,
you know?
Which makes sense.
I'm going to be that guy, but I think it's done, and I think it's beautiful that it's done.
So, I actually feel like he would do it Abby and Lev game. But I don't think he will now because of the fan base, and I don't... You know, it's difficult. I could still see him doing it, but I think it would be a smaller, compact game. I'm going to be honest. I'm with you. I don't want another one, but at the same time I do because I'm selfish. And I think the story did close out pretty perfect, but I still believe that the third game, if they were to do one, should be Ellie's pursuit of happiness. I mean, that's what I would want it to be, is her recovering now. Because we didn't really see that with Abby or Ellie. And I think that, and it's a unique, it would be a unique thing. And I think, yes, you could just do DLC or add-on. But the also thing about that is, you know, maybe I'm being selfish. I do want her to end up with Dina. She's not going to, because she left Dina for vengeance, and Dina said, like, I'm not going to be here. Like, and that's the whole point of the story, is that this path led her to lose everything. Same with Abby. Yeah,
I agree. But that's also like, I want to know that Ellie is happy in the ending, in the end of it all, but I don't necessarily want to play for that happy ending. Like, stories for me work because they have conflict and drama, and they don't necessarily end well. Like, Ellie has found inner peace, though she's still traumatized, and I think it's a good thing that she's forever traumatized by everything, literally. But you see her walking away. You see her walking away from trying to go back to that relationship, which she knows she caused very big pain to Dina. She's going out her own way to try and find peace, maybe for a lonesome, but that's what she thinks is better right now. And I believe that wherever she goes next, if we'll literally see nothing Last of Us ever again, I believe she found it at this point.
I do too. It's just so weird and so different, and it's heartbreaking, man. I love this fucking game so much. I was blown away with it. It's absolutely, I mean, people, you know, and if you disagree, that's totally fine. We can talk about it down below in the comment section. I mean, that's cool. Civil. Yeah, just be civil. Open mind. I mean, you know, for me, like, if you think this game was trash, like, I want to know why you think it's trash. Yeah. But I know a lot of people are talking about plot holes and stuff. What plot holes, you know, like...
Yeah, I'm not going to say they don't exist, but I didn't notice anything.
No, neither did I. I mean, nothing that's too extreme. I mean, honestly, Ren, this is my favorite film of 2020.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite film, but it is my favorite show. Because this feels like a show.
No, this is a movie. This is a movie for me, man. If this was the Oscars, the Golden Globes, it would win everything. And I think it's going to be quite interesting to see what they can do on HBO. I'm going to be honest, that'll probably be... the next thing we see The Last of Us is HBO. But I will say this. I've always been saying, like, I don't want a big actor for Joel. I'm sorry, no, after playing this game, I want Hugh Jackman to play Joel. I know, but come on. It's and I think Caitlin Denver playing Ellie.
Oh, that's good.
So that's who I'd want. That's who I'd want. Please don't cast Ronda Rousey as Abby, though. Just
Cast John Cena. As
you won't be able to see him. You won't be able to see him. But anyways, guys, thank you guys again so much for clicking on this. Ren, where can they find you at?
You can find me everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Ren Geekness. I do all sorts of movie reviews. I also have a podcast with this gentleman right here. And I got a lot of new stuff coming up. I have a fun idea that I might start next month. So come check me out and stay tuned.
All right. Thank you so much, Ren, for joining me and doing this installment. I'm sure we can find another thing to do. Thank you guys again so much for clicking on this. I really do like doing these kind of like first time for everything type stuff. I do have one coming out for me soon, very much about Black Swan, because I've never watched Black Swan. And then my dad has actually watched every Star Wars film. I think by next week he'll have watched every Star Wars film.
Nice.
So I'm trying to convince him to do my dad ranks every Star Wars film, which will be very interesting. And then we finally talked him into watching the MCU. He's only watched like 10 things out of the MCU, but we're gonna find. But I mean, this is him during it. So we're finally getting him to watch it, and I promise he'll be reviewing those, ranking those too. So it'll be a fun time. I love these first time things, and I just wanted to do one, and I'm glad I could kick it off The Last of Us with you, man. So thank you for doing this follow up with me, man. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. I hope you guys got a cool kind of perspective coming from someone who just got invested into this world. And of course, until next time, stay classy.